Hey, welcome in, everybody. I'm Will Ryan, the fantasy philosopher, here with my co-host, Tim. How are you doing today, buddy?
Doing well. It's a weird week. I
I
did.
cannot argue with that at all. I have to ask, I know you're in Arizona. I know the Cardinals are your team. Where we did get kind of a little bit of the surprise news that Kyler is going on IR all of a sudden.
Mhm.
Future in question. How are you guys feeling out there?
It's kind of hard to say. Like from a this season perspective, it really does feel like Brissett is the better option, and the offense works better with him. But he's also a 30-something plus career backup, so it doesn't exactly spell great news for a long-term outlook at the position. And as you and I have talked about in previous episodes, this quarterback class is not anything special, at least so far.
Yeah.
So, we could sneak into the playoffs if he continues playing well all year, but I I mostly just want to be done with Kyler, to be honest.
That's fair. So it's fair to say you're looking into the future with the way things are going.
Yep.
That's a good segue because that feels like exactly what we're probably going to talk about today with our value spikes episode here. So just quick reminders before we really get going. Dynasty in 30 is a Fantasy Now Plus show brought to you courtesy of Finn's Talk Sports Network. You can find it every Saturday on the Fantasy Now Plus YouTube or on FTSN Extra or on the Twitch channels. So tune in wherever's most comfortable for you guys. If you haven't, please make sure to like and subscribe below. You'll hear it every week. We're going to keep asking because it matters for the channel. So with that, go ahead and hit the intro, and then we'll be right back with Dynasty in 30.
You're watching Dynasty in 30, only on Fantasy Now Plus.
All right. Now that we are back in and at it this week, just remember, you don't want to miss any of the content out here. We've got a whole bunch of articles out on the website. We've got start sit information. We've got the weekly waiver options, a bunch of DraftKings underdog type articles, which, speaking of underdog, if you have not signed up, you can see right here. New customers play $5 and get a $100 bonus. Just use the promo code FN+. So the other thing you can get pretty much every day, we've got live shows going on. Tomorrow morning, we will have last minute fantasy football advice with Chef Justin, who is back from his Italy trip and ready to keep making absolutely gourmet game day eats. Monday, we've got our latest episode of Cold Brews and Hot Takes. Very curious to see what the Josh Kimmel has up in store for us this week, because I feel like we're hitting that point in the season where the weird things keep coming. You cannot predict what the NFL script writers are going to do next. So I'm sure he will have plenty of ammunition after this week's games. Tuesday, we've got our priority waiver show helping you guys ramp up your rosters every week. Wednesday, we actually have two shows. During the day, it's the Start Sit Showdown, where we take two kind of relatively closely ranked players and make the argument of why you should start one or the other. And then later that evening, it's the Fantasy Rankings Report, taking a look at where people are in the rankings, who are outliers, and whether the community is kind of at a consensus or if it's a controversial player. Thursday, we do have folks going over the DFS slate with Get Tilted. So help you get your DFS lineup set, get some plans, talk through the slate. And then on Saturdays, got Dynasty in 30 with Tim and I. So here we are. It is week 10, officially second half of the season. Tim, I know a lot of my leagues, I'm kind of hitting the point where, as much as I've wanted to hold on with my dynasty teams, I look at the age of my roster. I look at the number of players with that out tag or IR tag.
Yeah.
And this just isn't the year. So a lot of times when I hit these, the topic for today's show is really important.
Yep.
I know you had kind of suggested this as a topic, and value spikes over the off season, getting ahead of the market, really, really important to do, especially if you hit that point where you realize you're not competing. When you do look at value spikes, are you typically do you worry at all about current production, or are you usually looking at players like this and saying, all right, I think this guy is going to increase in value, I'm going to go get him at a discount now regardless of the points that they might score? Or are you kind of hesitant, and do you tailor it and have a more nuanced take an approach to increasing your roster value kind of, in season where points actually matter?
It's definitely a good question. I think kind of a precursor that I want to talk about to lead into that question is, something that I honestly hadn't really considered until the last couple of weeks with some of my interactions on Blue Sky. You can follow us there. We both love to chat on Blue Sky. Of the idea of house flipping in Dynasty, of taking an asset that, you can get $125,000 4-bedroom house that is disgusting. It needs a lot of work. You put in $100,000 into it and you sell it for $300,000 and you get $75K in profit. Doing kind of the same thing in Dynasty and treating players as assets that can appreciate and depreciate. And so if you take that approach, then this question of what are you looking for in season to buy in order to appreciate, it's really about understanding the situations that these players are in and understanding that market value will change at the smallest amount of news you could possibly imagine. If I say X player is going to play 20% more snaps next week and he hasn't been playing that many snaps, his value probably 1.5x's, maybe even doubles just on the news without ever seeing him play, without ever seeing him do anything in those extra snaps. And so I think that you should really be looking for players in situations where it can't really get worse. It can only get better.
Yeah, that's a good way to look at it. I will say I also kind of on the flip side of that, I am notorious for selling people kind of at their peak. I think in my mind, kind of quarterback especially, it's just so rare for players to just stay at peak value. I mean, back a few years ago, it was inconceivable to think that Patrick Mahomes wouldn't be QB1 or QB2 for years to come. And I mean, look where he's at now. He's, I would say, rebounded a little bit back to like QB5, QB6. So if you did turn around and trade him at a premium when he was QB1, I mean, it was not inconceivable for you to get someone else in that top tier with additional on top. I tend not to do that as much with receivers. I will admit. I think once receivers feel like the top handful really stay there kind of regardless. Jamar Chase, Justin Jefferson, now Puka Nacua. Amon-Ra is kind of a weird case. I feel like he just is perennially hated, but he produces like it. So I feel like even when these guys get hurt, like Malik Neighbors is hurt this year, his value is really not cratering the way that the mid-tier assets would. So receivers, you can't do this with as much just because there's not a dip in value for you to turn around and buy them back with. But like running backs all the time. I don't know that I would trade away a generational prospect like Bijan Robinson. But anyone else that gets up there, like last year when Saquon was just ripping it up. Derrick Henry when he was towards the top, like I'm not opposed to selling those guys, like again, for a premium on their value.
Yep.
To wait for them to have a bad game or two or sprain an ankle, and all of a sudden the manager who's got them is looking to pivot to something a little bit more stable, a little bit more reliable, because you don't know how long they'll be out, that kind of thing. Take advantage of the short-term flips, like Tim is kind of saying. It works both ways. If you see the opportunity coming, if you can get ahead of it, absolutely go buy first and then turn around and sell. If you say you have someone who has just skyrocketed up to the peak of their value. I mean, this year I'm looking at guys like Wan'Dale Robinson. Malik Neighbors gets hurt, and now he's getting 25+% target share every game. Like, his value is not going up from where it is. This is the best it's going to be. If you're a contender and you want to ride the production, that's fine. But if you're a rebuilder, you should absolutely be trading players like Wan'Dale Robinson, where you weren't expecting to get this type of production from them. It's kind of circumstances outside of their control that is driving the value.
Yep. And
I mean, I think you can cash in and get, more liquid assets, more opportunities to take big swings. Any other thoughts there, Tim? Is that?
I would say, yeah, like running backs are really going to be your variable pieces of this player can go from being worth literally nothing to being worth close to a first in some like extreme cases. Like think about like Kyron, he was worth absolutely nothing, and now he's worth a first plus in most leagues. Like wide receivers outside of Puka basically never do that, as you said. Like the high drafted ones are pretty much always the most valuable. You've got your rare third to fourth round cases, but for the most part, whatever your value you come in as, like unless you're truly ascendant, it's only going to stay about the same, possibly go down from there. So you really have to use running backs as your pieces to kind of move up and down the value charts, in my opinion.
Yep. I feel like you can also use tight ends too. It feels like every year, unless they're the elite prospects like a Brock Bowers, there's going to be so much value shifting as, someone puts together a game or two of just being the central focus of a game plan, and all of a sudden everyone projects that to be the way that it's going to be. I mean, honestly, I really like Aronde Gadsden, but I honestly think that it's getting to the point that the market is overreacting. Just with all of the weapons that are out there. I think he had a few games where kind of the slot, tight end, middle of the field area was where the Chargers wanted to attack. They don't have either of their top two running backs. I mean, it just like it felt perfectly for him. So yes, I was going out and buying him before it kind of hit the like first plus price tag for him. Now that it's hit that though, it's like, I mean, he wasn't an awesome prospect. He was good, but like he didn't stand out for much of anything there.
Yeah.
I mean, do we really think he's all of a sudden better than all except for 3 or 4 tight ends in the NFL? I don't know. I feel like, again, if you can get a premium on Aronde Gadsden where he's valued right now, after his value has kind of spiked up after his usage, I think that's the type of move that I'm looking to make, is to get more liquid assets, get guys who, as Tim pointed out, are kind of it's as low as they're going to go. Think someone like a Jaden Reed who's been on IR for months. Like his value's not going to go any lower because he's about to come back and play. People will be reminded that he's an explosive player that can pop off in any given game, although it's not going to be all that predictable. But you can go out and get Jaden Reed in a trade that includes someone like Aronde Gadsden and get enough value to cover the market cost for Gadsden. Like, I think you're doing the right thing there. I think it's a plus EV move because you can turn around and, as those assets that you acquire in the trade do appreciate, you turn around and flip them. And all of a sudden you're, instead of having that $175,000 house you were mentioning, now you've got your investment properties scattered around the city, making passive income. So, not to make this too economical, but you can kind of see how it goes from there. You turn one asset into multiple and just continue that pattern. So before we get in, looks like we do have a couple questions in the chat. Let's go ahead and touch on these. So Dynasty trade, 2026 first for Barkley and a third. Looks like 4 and 5, middle of the pack. Running backs are Breece Hall, Rico, and now Saquon. Wide receivers are Jay Jettas, Ibuka, and London. Seems like a reasonable team. I'm a little bit surprised that you would be 4 and 5 with that team. I don't know if you just kind of got a little bit unlucky and lost some games. I am always skeptical of trading away your first in years where you don't have realistic shot at a buy. And at 4 and 5, unless the whole league is just like cramped together in that like 6 and 3, 5 and 4, 4 and 5 range, I'd be a little bit worried about that. I don't mind the value.
Yeah.
I mean, Barkley for difference between a first and a third, that's good value. I don't think we've seen the best of Barkley this year. I think the Eagles have been figuring themselves out kind of after their Super Bowl run, but I think they're going to start clicking now coming out of the bye. I think it's going to be a situation where they're going to start relying back on their best players. A.J. Brown, Devonta Smith, Saquon Barkley, I think are all going to have big second halves of the season. I think the Eagles are really going to be focused to remind teams why they should be considered the best in the NFC, which we'll see if they can cement that status or if they're, just more and more vulnerable than in previous years.
Yeah.
Tim, agree, disagree?
I like it. I think people are kind of incorrectly viewing Saquon as like a rental at this point. I don't think he's done next year. Like, I don't think he just drops off the cliff. Like, it's not like this is Derrick Henry or Christian McCaffrey where it like truly could just be done any given year.
I mean, I would almost say like it is Derrick Henry or Christian McCaffrey, but a couple years ago, right? I mean, they're a little bit older. Saquon's a little bit younger. So if you were worried about it with Henry and you were worried about it with McCaffrey, it's like, yes, you can have a season like McCaffrey's last year where someone gets hurt and they just miss the year. But I mean, he's back this year. You can see what an elite running back can do. So,
yeah, I think like he will only help your team this year. We talked about this class is not my favorite in the world, and it would take a lot of historically bad luck for you to not finish at worst middle of the pack, even with the trade. So middle of the first round pick for Saquon and you get a third back. Like, I think that's perfectly fair value.
Yep. I like it. Okay. And then looks like Same's got another trade by the same 2156, AJ Brown and a second for Ibuka. Okay, so that's where you got Ibuka. I like that because I think Ibuka might just frankly, I think Ibuka is worth more than AJ Brown. So, paying a second to tier up from AJ Brown to Ibuka, I think, given the state of the Tampa Bay wide receiver room this year, like I think Ibuka will just be more steady. I'll be honest, I don't know that Ibuka is going to outscore AJ Brown the rest of the way. Just like that's just kind of the way it goes with the NFL. Like, AJ Brown could absolutely get hot here, but I mean, AJ Brown's hitting that point in his career where people will start looking at his age, the number next to his name, saying, how many more years does he have left? His value is only going to go down. Ibuka, like, to be fair, his value kind of skyrocketed early this season. So I don't know how much further it has to really go up. But if he were to kind of continue his production throughout this year, beginning of next year, like, he's certainly someone who could end up towards the bottom of that elite range. So I don't think we're ever going to see that with AJ Brown again, just due to his age and the inconsistency that he's shown thus far. So unless his situation absolutely changes where he goes to a pass-heavy team, which I think we knew he wasn't getting traded this year because of the financial commitment that the Eagles have. But, never say never, I guess, in the offseason.
Yeah, I mean, if he puts up a big enough stink, they may just be done with it and want to go with Smith as the wide receiver 1. But I like it. I always am in favor of buying appreciating assets for depreciating assets, especially when it only takes a second to get there. So, something that we will kind of talk about in this episode is like, Egbuka probably won't go up in value, but he also could. Like, you could get Mike Evans retires in the offseason and Chris Godwin is cut, or Chris Godwin is a shell of himself, and suddenly you've got a huge value spike purely off of vibes and purely off of perceived situation changes that may not actually change anything for fantasy, but it changes how people view him.
So last one, and then we'll jump into our value risers. Danny Dimes, a buy, sell, or hold. I mean, I think he's a buy. I don't think people are bought in yet. I think this Colts team is really, really good. I mean, I think you can see they think they're really good. They traded for Sauce Gardner. I don't, I think you always have a risk of seeing shades of, the old Danny Dimes that we had all come to hate and despise, not love and cherish. But I mean, he's been pretty consistent this year. He's got, one really bad game, but I mean, if you look at it, I don't think people who have been around the Colts are all that surprised that they went to Pittsburgh and lost. I think that's a pretty common thing that happens to them. They don't win in Pittsburgh. It's just kind of one of those monkey on the back situations. So I'm willing to just write that off. I think he's a buy.
Yep. I mean, he's still affordable. They'll probably only ask 1 first in Superflex, and I would pay just any random first for a starting QB and a premier offense that is now hitching their wagon to him almost certainly. Like you said, they traded their next 2 first-round picks in the real-life NFL draft just to go get a defensive back to help them try and win this season, but not just this season, but try and build their team for the next several years. So I don't think he's going away. I don't think he leaves this offense. They're certainly not going to move on from Steichen now that they're playing so well. So I think he's locked in for the next couple years and will give you back end quarterback 1, top end quarterback 2 value for sure.
All right, Tim, let me give you a second to collect your thoughts. While we get a quick promo for Underdog in here, and we will be right back with our value risers. All right, Tim. So who is your first value spike player here? Who do you see coming just up in value this offseason, and why?
I think it's Travis Hunter. Value right now is as low as it could possibly be. He's had 1 good game, and then he went down with a non-contact knee injury that somehow isn't a tear anywhere. Or if it is, they expect him to be back in 4 weeks from it. So But all that being said, like, you're going to go into the off season, regardless of how this season plays out, and you're going to hear, oh, they're going to play Hunter way more on offense. They're going to kind of fade away from the quarterback thing because of this injury. They want to just play him on offense. Oh, it's second year in the system of a Liam Cohen offense. He's the slot receiver. Everything that we were putting on him this year, we're going to put on him again next year of he's going to break out. He's going to be the guy. We've seen Brian Thomas Jr. kind of regress this season, whether via injury or play or both. And so there's going to be legitimate talks all offseason of, is Hunter actually the one? Is Hunter actually the alpha? The Jags will inevitably improve their offensive line. They may add someone to their running back room, whether they keep ETN or not. It could be Tootin and someone else, or it could just be Tootin, but the Dynasty community as a whole loves Tootin. So that would probably give that entire offense an uptick in the minds of most people. So I think he's just in a situation where, what news are you going to hear that would drop him in value at all? Like, outside of he actually did tear his ACL and like is out for the first half of 2026. Like, as long as that news doesn't come, like, he's going to rise in value, especially from where he is right now.
Yep, totally agree. Have no notes on that segment. I think you're 100% right. My first guy, I'm actually going to stay on the same team. One of the guys you just mentioned, Bashal Tootin.
Yep.
I think people were kind of buying into him this year as kind of that rookie running back, explosive playmaker. We've seen Travis Etienne up and down at times throughout his career. Started off really hot this year. Like, got credit to Travis Etienne. Like, he had a great start to the year. Although, as is kind of typical with him, he's trailed off lately. I think it is very unlikely that the Jags are going to keep Etienne around. It will be interesting to see. I think we're basically going to have multiple opportunities for value spikes with Tootin. In the offseason. We will see one when we haven't heard anything about ETN getting extended any hits free agency, because everyone will be like, oh, Bashal Tootin's the guy. Like, and then they'll project out this workhorse role that we shouldn't be expecting, but he's not a player that needs a workhorse role to succeed. In free agency itself, if they don't sign anyone who's a legitimate threat to start, I think, again, people are going to look at him as a free agency winner. If they sign offensive linemen in free agency, they'll look at Tootin as a free agency winner. And then in the draft, if they don't spend a day one or day two pick on a running back, like, everyone's going to, again, say Tootin's the guy.
Yep.
And just off of those situations, you'll see his value spike throughout the year, heading into training camp season. Now, do I think he's going to be left alone and just be the guy? No, I think they're going to bring someone in. But I think they're going to bring in a veteran to be kind of a steady hand behind him. I think Tootin's going to be the 1A next year. And in a Liam Cohen offense, I'm ecstatic about that. I think he has the explosive ability to create massive plays such that, he's going to have ceiling outcome games where all of a sudden he's got 150 yards and 2 touchdowns because he broke a 60 or 70 yard run or reception. And frankly, he's a good pass catcher. So he could get a lot of those short passes, like some of the guys who have kind of redefined the position a little bit, with Christian McCaffrey essentially playing wide receiver with all of the injuries that San Francisco's had. You've got Devon Achane. And I mean, it is just absolutely astounding how much they are targeting Achane.
Yeah.
Maybe it shouldn't be a surprise given his skill set. He's a guy that you want to get in space, but I think Tootin has the ability to absolutely take on a role like that. Maybe not as, big of a chunk as Christian McCaffrey has. I don't think anyone is going to be getting that workload, but it's one of those things that I think we can bank on Bashal Tootin just absolutely skyrocketing in value.
Yeah. And honestly, this season is kind of playing out perfectly for that thesis of ETN's playing just well enough that Tootin's probably not going to just flat out take over the backfield. So his value is going to stay somewhat low for the rest of the season, but they also have shown that they want to use him in high leverage situations. Like if you look at their last game, he was the goal line back for most of that game. Like he gets passing work, as you said. He is more explosive. He's basically has potential to be Devon Achane, but he's also 20 pounds heavier despite being almost as fast. So you can definitely see why he was beloved by the Dynasty community. He is in a good spot. He's in a good schematic offense for his talents, and it's really just about making the bet that he gets the opportunity next year that he has not gotten this year.
Yeah. So who do you have as your next value spike?
A couple guys that have kind of just always been looped together, and I'm going to continue to loop them together, but Garrett Wilson and Chris Olave, former Ohio State receivers. The thesis for both of them is going to be pretty simple. It's the quarterback play can't possibly get worse than this. Like it can only get better from here. And the Dynasty community still loves these guys. We still believe that they are, more or less alphas that just haven't gotten the quarterback play to be able to capitalize on their talents. And whether or not the Jets or the Saints actually get a quarterback that makes you feel that way, it's kind of irrelevant. The instant that it's even conceivable that the Jets are going to get a new quarterback or the Saints are definitely not going to stick with Tyler Shuck, like their value will rise, and it will be, well, what if they get, I don't know, like someone akin to Joe Flacco? Probably not Joe Flacco himself, but what if Jameis Winston goes to either of these franchises? What if X quarterback that is good for fantasy goes to one of these franchises? What if Brissett gets a starting job in one of these places next year? Like their value will rise, and they're still kind of only approaching their peaks and their primes. So I think they still have, if you were to trade for Garrett Wilson right now, it probably would be a first and some average piece behind you. He could be worth just 2 firsts by the time like the offseason is in full swing and by the time it's like truly rookie season and whatnot. It's just how these things go with young, exciting wide receivers that haven't broken out yet. We did this like year after year with Terry McLaurin, where it's like, this is the year. It finally happened to him. It happened to him when he was 28, but if it happens for Wilson or Olave, I think their value, 1.5x's, maybe doubles again. Like I just think we love certain players too much to ever let their value fall, and we are just absolutely waiting on bated breath for something good so that we can pay more than we need to.
Yeah, that's fair. I will follow you up here. I actually have another pair of wide receivers. I'm going to follow along with kind of your trend. Travis Hunter was your first guy. I'm going to go with 2 other rookie wide receivers, Trey Harris and Luther Burden. I see their values jumping in this offseason, mostly because of what's going to happen around them. Trey Harris is going to almost certainly see Keenan Allen out of the way, which is going to open up more snaps. He has performed pretty well in a limited role this year. I really haven't seen anything out of Trey Harris that makes me worry about him as a player. He's just in a crowded room right now. And I think once he gets the opportunity to kind of step into a more full-time role, I think his value is going to spike because he hasn't gotten the playing time like people maybe were hoping coming into the year. I mean, he was already a second round Dynasty pick this year. So, yeah. I mean, his value hasn't gone up yet because he hasn't really done anything. But I think once Keenan Allen is out of the way next year, we are going to see something out of Trey Harris, and that's when his value is going to spike. Same thing with Luther Burden, kind of that slot role in the Ben Johnson offense. right now he's working behind Olamide Zacchaeus. Disappointing that he hasn't overtaken him yet, but he has been banged up. And frankly, Zacchaeus has been okay. He's done what they've asked. He hasn't been super explosive. He isn't making things on his own, but he's being the part of the offense that he's supposed to be. I think they're going to start using Burden more once he's back from his injury. And I think everybody is going to start projecting that and more into next year with Zacchaeus out of the way. I think they're going to start looking at it. There's also a chance that DJ Moore won't be there next year. And all of a sudden, Luther Burden has even less target competition. And I mean, we've seen Luther Burden hit splash plays already in his limited role. So we've actually seen Luther Burden do it already. I'm a little bit surprised that his value hasn't popped more, even though I know he's been, in and out of the lineup a little bit. But he's one of those guys that once you see it, in my mind, like you should be buying in before it actually hits. So this is your chance before we head into the offseason and he gets his defined role. Luther Burden and, as I just mentioned, Trey Harris, two guys to get on your rosters now before the offseason.
Yep. Yeah, I like that you brought up DJ Moore because I think that's underrated. I don't think Ben Johnson likes him very much. He didn't really seem to enjoy his lack of effort last year that he saw. Like, he called him out numerous times during camp about it. He kind of has just, certainly hasn't been phased out of the offense, but he is not featured the way that Bears teams past featured DJ Moore. He's kind of just been a guy in this offense, and for the amount they're paying him, they may just want to move on and let Burden take on that type of skill set and that type of role. Yep. So I think there's honestly two paths to Burden getting a much better playing time next season.
All right, you have one more, two more. How many? What you got? What's our next value spike?
I've got 1.5 more because I'm gonna piggyback off of your Trey Harris conversation to include Oronde Gadsden as well. I think for all the reasons you said, like Keenan Allen will probably be gone next year. Their offensive line will not be literally dead. Like, they'll actually have both of their tackles back and some of their guards back. And
we can only hope.
Yeah, like everyone's going to immediately see what they did this season and extrapolate that to continue next season, but with better opportunity. That's not how that works, but that's how the community is going to at large act, as though the pass rate is going to stay the same. We're just going to have Amari and Hampton back, and he's also going to run for 100+ yards per game because suddenly this offense will be that good. And I think, whether or not Gadsden is the real deal or not, I wouldn't say remains to be seen. Like, having the season he's having is evidence that he is good. It's whether he remains this good for fantasy or not that is really the big question. But outside of that, I think both Harris and Gadsden are going to have this hype all summer of like someone, we also as a community would love to just not have to deal with Quentin Johnston. Like, we would just happily ship him off into not caring about him again. So I think the Dynasty community at large is definitely going to take that approach of let's just pretend QJ doesn't exist, and let's say Ladd's the 1, and let's say Gadsden is the 2, and let's say Trey Harris is the 3, and QJ can be the 4, and we'll all just pretend he's not real. So
I have to say, between the Chargers and the Green Bay Packers, I really wish that kind of the Highlander piece was real life. There can only be one.
Oh, no.
And like, just pick a guy to be your guy so that we know this guessing who it's going to be every game is so frustrating as a fantasy analyst. But they all, they all have good upside, and it just comes down to game plan, strengths and weaknesses of the opponent, and frankly, just luck of who converts their opportunities in any given week. So,
my other real guy is Quinshon Judkins.
Okay.
You may be asking, how can he go up from where he's at? And I will tell you immediately, we're going to have a big conversation all off season. Who's the quarterback? We might not even have the same coaching staff. Like, it might be a new offense, a new coach, a new quarterback. The wide receiver room might be gutted, or it might greatly improve. They might add, like a first round pick rookie to it or something. Like, they have extra pieces from the Travis Hunter trade. They're going to continue to retool this team, and people are going to see, Judkins has been good, not great this year. He's been as good as this offense will kind of allow, to be honest. But they're going to go in all off season and say, okay, well, what will he look like with a full training camp and not having this weird legal stuff hanging over his head? What will happen if the Browns decide to use him a bit in the passing game? Like, even though they have Dylan Sampson, what if he just started catching passes at a decent clip? Like, there goes his value. So I think that the Dynasty community is just going to talk themselves into, this guy is very talented. He's proven it on the field. He hasn't exploded. He's not like the running back 3 in Dynasty or anything like that, but he could easily grow in value to the point where it's going to be very hard to acquire him.
Definitely. All right. So I will wrap us up here. I'll bring us home with your favorite topic. I actually see Kyler Murray as a value riser. As much as, he has not looked good this year, or frankly for a couple years. We know what Kyler Murray is now. He's, an okay quarterback that just doesn't seem to click with the offense, just isn't elevating his playmakers. More and more, it looks like we are headed towards a split with Arizona. And frankly, that's where I think we're going to see Kyler's value rise. It's one of those where it's kind of bottomed out. Everyone's sick of him, the same way that we've kind of seen with, players like Bryce Young when he got benched last year. People have bottomed out on Trevor Lawrence.
Yeah.
You would be surprised how many chances that any reasonably competent quarterback will get. Yeah. How many people were writing off Daniel Jones?
Yep.
And now look at him. Like, maybe that's all Kyler needs is a fresh start somewhere in a different offense where he, his skill set will just mesh a little bit better. And I think Arizona's wanting that. I think they want to move on from him. They realize it's a failed marriage. Figuring out exactly how they do that is going to be interesting during the off season. I don't know that he's exactly a trade candidate. And I think financially it's going to hurt to have to cut or waive, but we'll see where they end up. I'm sure that they'll have some conversations about it, but if Kyler Murray ends up in a new location, like, I think he's too good to go as a backup. And you look at some of the quality of QB play around the NFL right now, and it's like Kyler is one of the best 32 out there. Like, he just is. So He should be starting somewhere. It's just figuring out where that fit's going to be.
Yeah. I don't think he's a bad quarterback, like, fandom aside. I think he's probably the worst possible fit for the offense that he's in. As you've seen with Jacoby Brissett in his 3 starts, like, you want someone who will play under center, who will play action at a high rate, who will stick in the pocket and load up and throw it deep when he has the opportunity to do so. Yep. And Kyler doesn't do that anymore. Ever since the ACL tear, he does not stand in the pocket. He does not step into throws. He does not move up. He runs backwards. He runs sideways. He scrambles. That's fine. He's probably the fastest or second fastest quarterback in football, so that he gets away with that a lot. And it honestly makes the Cardinals' offensive line look better than it is. But outside of that, like, the Cleveland Browns Kevin Stefanski tree that Drew Petzig is from, like, is all about timing. It's all about play action. It's all about targeting the middle of the field. It's about identifying the route and the matchup that you want and exploiting that. And that's just not how Kyler plays football. That doesn't make him bad. That just makes him not a scheme fit. And I think that we've reached the point where the fan base and the ownership team are kind of would rather go with the coaching staff than with Kyler.
Yep.
We've seen everything we can out of Kyler in a Cardinals uniform. So yeah, if you're telling me that he's worse than Spencer Rattler, I'm just going to laugh in your face. Like he's probably still a top 20 quarterback. He's just in legitimately a terrible system for his abilities as a quarterback. He needs to get outside the pocket. He needs a Cliff Kingsbury type offense. Like he needs to be able to play in an RPO scheme. He needs to be able to be rolling to his right or rolling to his left. He needs fast receivers that can hit the deep ball. He needs players that will come back to him and can play well out of structure. And that's just not what the Cardinals have.
Yep, absolutely. So I think that was a good section, Tim, for all of you out there. Hopefully it was helpful to hear us talk through some of these players. Feel free to go out to your leagues, make some offer for these players. But beyond that, just, think through why we were bringing up these players, what the rationale was, and look for even more. There's more and more out there. But these are the types of way that you can really supercharge your roster value in between from season to season, whether you are competing this year and worried about dropping off next year, whether you are calling it this year and just already looking to the future. Everyone has the opportunity here to really add value to their roster without anything really happening. You just have to kind of think ahead, get ahead of these value shifts, and this is how you do it. You think through, you identify the situations that are going to help, and you go for it. So until next week, hopefully everyone has some fun going out and making some moves. If you haven't already hit your trade deadline, if you have, I'm sorry, but, find leagues that have later trade deadlines.
Yep.
Until next week, this has been Dynasty in 30. Peace out, guys.
Thanks for listening. Be sure to like and subscribe wherever you watch or listen to podcasts. We'll be back next week for more ways to win your league.